Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the October 6th, 2025 work session of the Haverford Township Board of Commissioners. Tonight's meeting gives us the opportunity to preview and discuss the agenda items scheduled for next week's regular meeting and to hear updates on key township matters. We'll begin the meeting with a roll call. I'll ask our Township Manager, Dave Berman, to now take the roll.
Commissioner Gondek.
Present.
Commissioner Forstey-Grupp.
Here.
Commissioner Cavender.
Here.
Commissioner Holmes and Quinn are absent. Commissioner Hart.
Here.
Commissioner McCullum.
Here.
Commissioner McCluskey.
Here.
Commissioner Trombetta.
Here, thank you. I now ask everyone to once again please rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Lieutenant Kelly. Thank you. As outlined on the agenda, I'll begin the meeting with Commissioner Committee updates. I invite any commissioners who wish to share updates from their respective committees to do so at this time. Hearing none, I now invite Lieutenant Kelly up for our Police Department report.
Good evening, everyone. So the monthly Chiefs report for September of 2025. We had 24 criminal arrests, 5 juvenile arrests, 241 traffic citations, 10 non-traffic citations, 45 written warnings, and 500 parking tickets issued. We had 2 burglaries reported in the month of September, 2300 block of Haverford Road. The victim's apartment was entered at some point, and silver and some other items were taken from a living room. And then on September 14th, unit block of Cedarbrook, we had a male arrested after he entered a dwelling, domestic related, but we made an arrest in that case. In the month of September, we had 3 vehicles that were stolen, one from the 600 block of Ashurst, another one from the 2400 block of Avon Road, and one in the 1800 block of Belmead Avenue. They occurred on the 1st, the 9th, and 2 on the 9th during the overnight hours. During the month, we had 20 thefts from autos, pretty much scattered all over the township, but for the most part, Hastings Avenue, Thompson Circle got hammered. The 4th, evening of the 4th, the 6th, the 9th, and then we had the Lanark section, a couple streets got hit, and the Ardmore section got hit. Happy to report that on the evening of September 19th, we had some AirPods stolen from the 300 block of Oxford Road. We were able to make an arrest in that case. The victim was able to use her GPS feature on her AirPods. We were able to track down where the suspect lived, and we recovered them, and charges are pending. And also, one of our cases was a 2800 block of Rising Sun Road. One of our victims lived there, and then Marple police chased the vehicle later that night, and our victim's AirPods were in that vehicle. So they arrested 4 people for that. So in the month we arrested 5, we did have 20 vehicles entered. And I would bet that those 4 that were arrested in Marple did a lot of our cases here throughout the month. So after that, things kind of slowed down. So we had 2 bicycle thefts, one from the front of the middle school. Bike was unlocked, but we did later recover it near Hathaway and Huntington. And then on the busway in Haverford, a bike was attempted to be stolen there too. That is all I have. Any questions?
Any of my colleagues have any questions? Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we'll now move on to review the items scheduled for consideration at the Tuesday, October 14th, 2025 regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners. Please note that the meeting again will be held on Tuesday as opposed to Monday due to the holiday. Next week, the Board of Commissioners looks forward to a special ceremonial check presentation for a Connecting Greenways and Trails Grant Award from the Friends of Haverford Trails and their partners at Haverford Township Civic Council in the amount of $30,000. This award will be used to support the construction of the final connection of the Darby Creek Trail between Glendale Park and McDonald Field. We greatly look forward to accepting this generous grant award next week. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments regarding next week's check presentation at this time? Hearing none, the board will also look forward to reading 4 proclamations for the Haverford West Football Club, Noah Fire Company 100th Anniversary, National Disability Employment Awareness Month, and Augmentative and Alternative Communication Awareness Month. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments regarding the reading of these 4 proclamations next week? Hearing none, we'll move on. So next week, the board will consider the approval of warrants as detailed in the public agenda packet that will be published prior to Tuesday's meeting. Are there any questions or comments at this time? Hearing none, we'll now move on to the consent agenda items. Before we begin the review of the individual items listed under the consent agenda, I'd like to remind my colleagues and the public that these items will be considered with a single vote at next week's meeting. Each item is outlined in greater detail in the public agenda packet, and we'll take time this evening to review them individually. If any member of the board would like an item to be considered separately, they may request its removal either tonight or at next week's meeting so that it may be addressed independently. There are currently 5 items listed under the consent agenda for next week. We'll start to review them. Next week, under the consent agenda, the board will consider the approval of minutes from our September 8th, 2025 meeting of the Board of Commissioners. At this time, do any of my colleagues have any questions, comments, or proposed edits to those minutes? Okay, next week, under item B in the consent agenda, the board will consider the approval of a 1-year HVAC preventative maintenance contract to Elliott Lewis in the amount of $13,620. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments regarding this purchase or contract award? Okay, next week, under item C in the consent agenda, the board will consider approving the purchase of a Ford Escape for the Codes Department in the amount of $34,190. According to the memo included in our packet, the total purchase amount for the vehicle will be funded from the 2025 General Fund operating budget adopted December 9th, 2024. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments regarding this agenda item? Great. Next week, under item D in the consent agenda, the board will consider approving the purchase of a utility terrain vehicle for emergency medical services at a cost of $23,194.44 after a trade-in. It's my understanding this is a replacement from 2005. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments regarding this purchase? Excellent. Next week, under item E in the consent agenda, the board will consider approving the purchase of emergency networking software for a total of $10,000. Any of my colleagues have any questions or comments regarding this purchase? Great. This exhausts the items on the consent agenda. We'll now move on to reviewing 3 ordinances that will be under consideration next week. Next week, the board will consider a second reading of ordinance number P11-2025, limiting parking to 2 hours on both sides of Pilgrim Lane between Warrior Road and Signal Road in Ward 9. Again, this is the second reading, so this matter has been discussed. Nevertheless, I wanted to ask if any of my colleagues have any questions or comments at this time. Moving on, the board will consider a first reading of ordinance number P12-2025 to remove the handicap parking in front of 2939 Berkeley Road. Based on the memo in our packet, it's my understanding that the handicap parking is no longer required in front of this property. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments regarding this ordinance? Excellent. The board will also consider a first reading of ordinance number P13-2025 to add handicap parking in front of 336 Darby Road. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments regarding this ordinance? Maybe we'll get somebody else to talk now. So the board will consider approving an application for conditional use submitted by St. John Newman Roman Catholic Church, owners of 380 Highland Avenue, who are seeking conditional use approval from the Board of Commissioners for the expansion of the existing use as a private educational institution in accordance with zoning code section 182-602B2B. The applicant requests approval of the prior and proposed additions of the school for conditional use. For the viewing public, this matter was the subject of a public hearing that took place this evening at 6 p.m. With that said, are there any questions or comments from my colleagues regarding this agenda item?
We're not doing another presentation on that.
No, perhaps though, when we get to the land development. This one's for the conditional use.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for speaking. All right, so moving on, are there any questions or comments regarding the conditional use portion? Okay, so we'll move on. The board will consider 3 resolutions next week, beginning with Resolution 2460-2025. This resolution authorizes Haverford Township to apply for a $700,000 statewide local chair account grant from the Commonwealth Financing Authority to fund renovations of the locker rooms at the Haverford YMCA. It also designates the township manager and assistant township manager to execute all necessary documents to secure and manage the grant. This is being done at the request of the Haverford YMCA. We essentially need to have a municipal sponsor in order to apply for this grant program. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments regarding this resolution?
Just to clarify, there's no township funds involved in this.
Yes, that's correct.
So this is a grant, this is an application by the YMCA, but just as the municipality, we're kind of giving our approval, which is required for them to put in for this. So they're doing everything. All we're doing is saying we don't oppose it. We support it. Correct? Is that correct?
That is correct. We don't, that's 100% correct. I don't even need to go any further.
Thank you.
Quick question. What year was, I can't recall, what year was the Y opened? This is for replacement of locker rooms, is that correct?
Correct.
I was just curious how old, I mean, it doesn't seem like it's been there that long.
I'm going to guess probably early 2012, 2013, 2014.
Probably 13 years.
Somewhere in there.
Thank you.
We just had the 10-year a couple years ago, so 12, 13.
Any further questions or comments? Okay, thank you. That will be up for consideration next week. Next week, the board will consider Resolution 2461-2025, a resolution for preliminary/final land development plan approval for the S.S. Coleman John Newman School for a building addition at 380 Highland Lane in Bryn Mawr. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments regarding this resolution? Do you have any further presentation that you'd like to offer at this time? I think we went through a lot of it. Please, sir. If you would please introduce yourself again for the viewing
Certainly.
public.
My name is Robert Lynn, L-I-N-N, Principal in Architects, working with the school on the proposed replacement of the temporary modular classrooms to become permanent classrooms. I suspect that Mr. Faulkner, who actually I paid a compliment when he wasn't here, his letter of May 29th is important because that's the letter that your resolution will be based upon. And we spent considerable time, I think we walked out at 11:15 from the Planning Commission meeting, going through all the salient points of that particular letter. And there were a number of will complies we agreed to. And there's, I think people misstate the word will comply. It's can comply and will comply because, you know, you have to be able to and then you're willing to do so. I believe it was tied to that particular May 29th letter from Pannoni. And there were a couple points in there, and there were a lot of waiver requests, ironically, most of which I heard from the 2 previous applicants because the ordinance is set up for these, example, 6-inch curves instead of 8-inch curves because 8 inches PennDOT, 6 inches internal. I always laugh because the maximum step we're allowed under the IBC is 7 inches, but we have 8-inch curves. You got to jump up. And they're big curves to step up or down from, you know. We had a lengthy, spirited conversation about sidewalks. And let's put it on the record because I don't want to hide it from anybody. And we have agreed as an applicant, although I got this little tiny tucked addition in the back corner, to implement sidewalks for the entire length of the front of the existing school. So on my exhibit over here, the sidewalks would be, we had suggested perhaps using the 530 linear foot internal sidewalk. Your engineer kindly pointed out that he is not a fan of internal sidewalks and thought the board would want to probably see a public sidewalk. So we've agreed from driveway mouth to driveway mouth to implement sidewalks. There's no reason to put a curb in, however, because the curb wasn't going to help with stormwater. There's a level place and it drops down into a valley. And I believe Mr. Faulkner agreed that the curb wouldn't help us in any capacity, but the sidewalk he thought was a good idea. We also did not really truly discuss a lot of sidewalks farther down the mill. However, we understand the board may want to see them, and we had suggested, since it's not a heavily traveled area, you could perhaps use those funds elsewhere. So we are certainly willing to provide a fee in lieu of for those sidewalks. The problem is there was conversation about gravel, there was conversation about artificial turf. None of those work really well on sloping surfaces, and that goes downhill pretty quickly. The gravel washes out. So I'd rather, and quite frankly, the residents of this community said, don't put sidewalks there. So we are suggesting if you would consider a fee in lieu of for that stretch of sidewalks. We work with your Shade Tree Commission, even though I'm a fifth of a mile away from the road where they want some extra trees. We've agreed to some trees, and we came to a conclusion we were good on that. And there's 3 trees. They wanted 2. I gave them 3 because you can't put a river birch by itself. You got to have a pair of them. So I'm hoping you will see fit to recognize the requested waivers.
Just to confirm, because I think you said in front of the school, but the sidewalk will actually go from,
Driveway mouth to driveway mouth.
right, so it'll go in front of the school, the church, and the
And the rectory, correct, yes. And that makes sense. That's a level area. We're up on a hill. The Shade Tree Commission was a little objectionable to that because they thought I might be closer to the root balls of the trees. I think we'll be outside that zone. We're going to stay on the top of the hill and not down, and we'll put, of course, an accessible curb cut at both ends of that particular sidewalk stretch. That's what we'd like to see you allow us to do. And frankly, I can only do so many things here, especially in light of our voluntary expensive stormwater thing. I only have a finite amount of funds. And frankly, the good thing is because this project's forward, that's the only reason that we have the ability to raise funds to take care of this, because otherwise we couldn't come up with funds. So we're packaging it, if you will, into the whole process. So it's a good opportunity. So I didn't want to belabor this, but I think those 2 waiver requests are often confusing. We struggle with the same conversation in Nether Providence Township about where do you put sidewalks every time there's an applicant in front of me. And a couple of members of the commission had the planning commission had different points of view. And they said, well, it's something the township wants to see. I said, it's something you should look at on a case-by-case basis. There's times you really want them. There's times you can put the funds, as long as you get the funds, somewhere else that you could do better service to residents. So I think I think that's the planning commission's job to make those recommendations on a case-by-case basis. So that's basically my waiver done, my waiver request that we've implemented, preliminary/final. Curb height, you've seen the rest of them. Everything else we can comply with. And Mr. Capuzzi was kind enough to point out that the fee in lieu of creating additional open space that our soccer field, if correctly nomenclated on the plan, complied with that fee in lieu of our multi-acre field, gave us the ability, as long as it wasn't ever developed, the further development restriction, that would comply with that one comment, my question on how do we implement fee in lieu of open space. So.
Thank you so much.
That's my rambling.
Let me open up to the board to see if there are any questions or comments. It looks like Commissioner Cavender does.
Couple more, though. You answered a lot of them in our conditional use hearing, and you answered a couple of them just now when you were talking about the sidewalks. I wanted to hear a little bit more about that request. So are you taking trees out and adding them, or you're just adding a net 3 trees?
It turned out in my entire 1,800 linear foot of frontage, I was only short 3 trees.
Okay.
I was short
Of
2
the
trees.
required, okay.
And I gave 3, and we had a very long 45-minute discussion about the species, what they should be, and we were all happy when we were finished, and we were following the Shade Tree Commission's recommendation on the trees.
Okay,
So.
good. So where will those go?
They're going to go down on Mill, because there's a couple gaps on Mill. We're okay on Highland, but down, Mill's just off my sheet, I apologize, but it's a big site. Just down here on Mill, we have one of them over towards the driveway and a pair of river birches closer to the intersection.
And if everything is approved, what's the construction timeline?
That's a very good question. And I am in the same business of construction management. I think the actual bricks and sticks implementation on a job like this is close to a year. I think actually physical construction's a year. we have to, of course, apply for and be granted a building permit. We have to, of course, first have land development approval to even apply for a building permit. So when you grant that next week, thank you. We will move rapidly forward into developing building plans. There's 2 builders already on board, have been looking at it and pricing it. They're in a very ambitious and successful fundraising campaign, which had to get expanded for a little extra water, but we're working on it, and a few extra sidewalks, but we're working on it. But as long as that goes well, we're ready to go.
So it will take a year once you start. How long will it take before you start?
Well,
3 or 4
I think it
months or-
partially depends upon how long it takes the township to review a building permit. I mean, since we do that in 16 municipalities, we by state law have 6 working weeks to review a set of plans. We try to turn those around in 2 or 3. I'm sure you'll help us there. The implementation, the creation of plans to get ready is probably 2 months total. So mechanical, electrical, plumbing, structural plans, it's not a complicated building, but still, it's still 2 months. Solidifying pricing another month. I think it all partially depends upon how successful the capital campaign is. So if funds are available, we go out to bid. If they're not, there might be a deferral. And we have to be careful because we only have a 2.5-year tail on the July 2024 zoning hearing decision to extend our 2022. So we might get close to that. And it only was I believe it's tied to the issuance of a building permit. So I think we're going to be okay there. Otherwise, we're back asking for another extension. Hopefully, we're not there.
Great.
I can give you a better
Any other
timeline
questions?
after next week and moving
okay.
in. But I have to
Sure.
consult with my client on the capital campaign,
Yeah.
which is one of the golf outing tonight was why Kelly left. She's on a fundraising mission. So
Good. I hope it's successful. All right, thank you.
thank you.
Any further questions or comments?
Made some plan, if you're removing the modulars and you don't have the classrooms, is there some mechanism in place in the interim?
Great question. There's a little bit of room in the rectory house. There's a little bit of room in the church. Hopefully, you can get some of the heavy work done during the summer, in 3 or 4 months. One of the things that's happening, one of the reasons is right now arts and library are in traveling carts. So there's things they've done to stopgap, if you will. So the whole idea partially in the classrooms is to have permanent spaces for the library and the art and have permanent spaces for students instead of traveling and to make them not have to go outside and then back in the building. A lot of security issues here in today's world, unfortunately, as well as, weather issues, slippery ramps, no toilet rooms. So they're used to working on the marginal right now. So I know they have a plan in place to get those 2 classrooms somewhere else temporarily, but it's going to be a little bit of a struggle for a while.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions or comments?
No, I didn't mean to steal
No,
your
thank you,
agenda.
Mr. Lynn.
Was
I
that helpful?
appreciate it. It was
Okay.
very helpful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Mr. Engineer, we good, sir? Thank you. Thank you. Jamie, we good? Thank you. Okay, I'm happy now. I'll go sit down.
Excellent, thank you. All right, so moving on, the board will consider Resolution 2462-2025 to reassign Federal American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, funds for the Darby Creek Southern Trail Extension Project. My colleagues have any questions or comments regarding this resolution? Hearing none, the board will consider approving a 2-year purchase agreement extension of Haverford Township's participation in the Delaware County Public Schools Healthcare Trust, which provides medical and prescription coverage for employees and dependents at significant savings. According to the memo we received, the renewal rate for 2026 is set at 5.9%, well below the market trend of 9.4%, and the agreement would run from January 1st, 2026 through December 31st, 2027. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues about this agreement?
Was this the same agreement that we had on last month's agenda that we tabled?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
thank you. Any further questions or comments? Okay, then finally, next week, the board will consider a motion to support the nomination of the Miller Leadham Dickerson House, also known to many as Harford Hall, for listing in the National Register of Historic Places. It's my understanding that the Haverford Township Historical Commission has already reviewed the application and has recommended support of the nomination of this historic resource. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues about this? That concludes our preview of the Tuesday, October 14th agenda. Any final questions, comments, concerns about items discussed tonight? I'll now entertain a motion to adjourn. Meeting's adjourned. Go Phils. Thank you.